5 hidden hormonal disasters narcissistic abuse triggers. Doctors are still baffled. There's no question that narcissistic abuse leaves a deep mark not only on the mind but also on the body. Survivors don't just walk away with emotional scars. They often find their entire biological system has been thrown off balance. Prolonged exposure to relentless stress rewires the body at a cellular level, disrupting hormones and creating long-term health issues that feel almost impossible to explain. When most people discuss this, the focus usually lands on cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. And while cortisol does play a major role, it's only one piece of a much larger, far more complicated puzzle. What actually happens inside a survivor's body is a cascade of hormonal shifts, subtle but powerful changes that ripple through every system, leaving survivors feeling like strangers in their own skin. This is a subject that is very personal to me, because the truth is, most medical professionals don't recognize it. Survivors often show up to doctors' offices with exhaustion, insomnia, weight changes, hormonal imbalances, or mysterious symptoms, only to be dismissed with a shrug or told it's just anxiety. Many walk away believing something is wrong with them, when in reality, the body is reacting exactly as it was trained to under abuse. The medical system hasn't caught up to the science of trauma at this level, and as a result, survivors are left carrying both the burden of their symptoms and the frustration of not being believed. So, if you've ever felt betrayed by your own body after enduring narcissistic abuse, if you've been gaslit not just by your abuser but also by doctors who told you it's all in your head, or if you're living with health struggles that began during or after your toxic relationship, this conversation is for you. Today we're diving into 5 hormonal changes caused by narcissistic abuse that most doctors can't explain. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of what's really happening inside your body and, hopefully, a sense of validation that what you've been experiencing is real. Hormonal shift number 1. Cortisol gone off the rails. When most people think about the effects of stress, they think of high cortisol. But what narcissistic abuse actually does to your cortisol system is far more complex and far more damaging than just spiking it. Cortisol is supposed to follow a natural daily rhythm, guided by the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis. In a healthy body, levels peak in the morning to help you wake up, slowly taper down through the day, and hit their lowest point at night so you can fall asleep. That rhythm is like an internal clock, keeping your energy and rest cycles in balance. Living with a narcissist destroys that rhythm. The constant need to be hyper-alert, the unpredictability of their outbursts, and the never-ending tension keep your system firing at the wrong times. Your cortisol may surge at 3 a.m. when you should be deeply asleep, leaving you wide awake and restless. Or, in the middle of a stressful day when you desperately need energy, your cortisol may flatline, leaving you drained and unable to cope. Survivors often experience one of 3 patterns. First, a hypercortisol state where levels stay high, fueling anxiety, insomnia, weight gain around the middle, and that jittery feeling of being wired but exhausted. Then comes the hypocortisol crash. Your system burns out, leaving you bone-tired, unable to get out of bed, and incapable of handling even small stresses. The third pattern is the most disorienting: wild cortisol swings, where your levels yo-yo between too high and too low in a single day. Most doctors miss all of this. Why? Because the standard medical test usually checks cortisol only once, in the morning. That single snapshot can't capture the larger story of a body living in survival mode. Without understanding the abusive context, the results often get dismissed, and survivors are left wondering why they feel so broken when their test looks normal. Hormonal shift number 2, oxytocin and dopamine hijacked. The next major disruption involves the very chemicals that govern bonding, trust, and reward: oxytocin and dopamine. These are the hormones that make relationships feel safe and joy feel possible. In a healthy connection, oxytocin, the love hormone, is steadily released through affection, trust, and consistent care. It builds a baseline sense of security. But under narcissistic abuse, this system is twisted into a weapon. Here's how it works. During love bombing, When a narcissist showers you with attention and affection, your oxytocin skyrockets. Your brain interprets this as deep emotional bonding, almost like a chemical glue tying you to them. Then suddenly, they pull it all away. The devaluation phase cuts off your oxytocin supply, leaving you in withdrawal. And it's not just emotional, it feels physically like heartbreak, because your body has been trained to crave that oxytocin surge. Dopamine, meanwhile, gets trapped in an even crueler cycle. This is your brain's reward chemical, released when you anticipate or receive pleasure. Narcissists know, consciously or not, how to turn this into a slot machine effect. You never know when they'll give you approval, affection, or validation. But when they do, the dopamine hit is massive. That unpredictability makes the bond intensely addictive. It's the same mechanism that drives gambling addiction. Intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest cravings known in psychology. After leaving the relationship, the damage lingers. Survivors often describe feeling like nothing is enjoyable anymore. Activities that once brought joy feel flat, unrewarding, or empty. This state, called anhedonia, is a direct result of dopamine dysregulation. Your brain has been rewired to expect its highs only from the narcissist, and without them, the baseline feels depleted. It's not weakness, it's biology. Your bonding and reward systems were hijacked, and recovery requires time, patience, and intentional healing. Hormonal shift number 3, thyroid breakdown and metabolic disruption. The third major change takes place in your thyroid system, the control center for metabolism, cellular energy, and overall vitality. Under normal conditions, your thyroid operates on a finely tuned feedback loop. The hypothalamus signals the pituitary releases TSH, and the thyroid responds by producing T4 and converting it into T3, the active hormone your cells actually rely on. This system works like a carefully balanced circuit. But when you live under the constant strain of narcissistic abuse, that circuit begins to short out. Prolonged cortisol elevation suppresses TSH production, so your thyroid is never properly signaled to produce what your body needs. Even when blood work comes back within normal range, your thyroid may be functionally sluggish. On top of that, stress hormones interfere with the conversion of T4 into T3, leaving your cells starved of the hormone that actually drives energy. It doesn't stop there. The chronic inflammation triggered by ongoing abuse can awaken your immune system in destructive ways, sometimes leading it to attack your own thyroid tissue. This is why many survivors later develop autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, often months or years after the relationship has ended. The symptoms: exhaustion, brain fog, weight fluctuations, anxiety, depression, hair loss, and temperature sensitivity can feel overwhelming and confusing. Because standard thyroid tests often capture only a single data point instead of the full dynamic system, survivors are frequently told their results look fine. The reality is that their biology is being disrupted at multiple levels, and the conventional tests simply aren't showing the whole picture. Hormonal shift number 4, reproductive hormones in chaos. The fourth disruption unfolds in the reproductive system, which is highly sensitive to chronic stress signals. In women, the body often interprets prolonged abuse as a clear message that conditions are unsafe for reproduction. As a result, estrogen and progesterone production may be drastically reduced or thrown out of balance. Cycles can become irregular, painful, or disappear altogether. Even when menstruation continues, it often shifts in quality, bringing heavier bleeding, shortened cycles, or extended cycles that create additional physical strain. The instability between estrogen and progesterone frequently produces emotional turbulence, insomnia, and sudden physical symptoms that feel unpredictable and disorienting. For men, the same biological warning signals suppress testosterone synthesis. Over time, this leads to a decline in libido, erectile dysfunction, muscle loss, and increased fat storage. Just as significant are the psychological effects. Testosterone depletion is linked to low mood, irritability, and vulnerability to depression and anxiety. Both men and women also suffer secondary consequences in the form of sleep disruption. Progesterone and testosterone normally provide a calming influence that helps the nervous system settle into deep, restorative rest. When these hormones are suppressed or destabilized, sleep becomes fragmented, light, and unrefreshing. That lack of quality rest then feeds back into the cycle, worsening hormonal imbalance and amplifying both physical and emotional symptoms. In this way, reproductive hormones don't just govern fertility, they become central to how resilient, balanced, and grounded you feel in daily life. Hormonal shift number 5. Insulin resistance and blood sugar instability. The final major hormonal disruption often goes unnoticed, yet it can be one of the most damaging in the long run. Insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone responsible for helping your cells absorb glucose and regulate blood sugar. In the context of narcissistic abuse, the body is placed in a state of relentless survival mode. Every moment of tension, unpredictability, or emotional volatility triggers the stress response, flooding your bloodstream with glucose as if you are preparing to fight or flee. This surge of blood sugar forces your pancreas to pump out repeated waves of insulin to bring levels back down. When this happens day after day, month after month, your cells begin to ignore insulin signals. They no longer respond efficiently, and as a result, the body requires more and more insulin to achieve the same effect. This is the essence of insulin resistance, a state that leaves survivors vulnerable to ongoing fatigue, weight gain that seems impossible to reverse, and relentless cravings for sugar and refined carbohydrates. Many notice brain fog after meals, energy crashes in the afternoon, and an increasing struggle to maintain a healthy metabolism, no matter how carefully they eat or how much they exercise. The problem doesn't stop with blood sugar alone. Insulin resistance feeds directly into the other hormonal imbalances triggered by abuse. It amplifies cortisol dysregulation, worsens thyroid dysfunction, and contributes to reproductive hormone chaos. In other words, it is not just a single hormonal shift, it becomes a central thread in the entire web of biological chaos. It is also why so many survivors eventually develop prediabetes or type 2 diabetes years after leaving the relationship, unaware that the roots of these conditions were planted during the abuse itself. One reason survivors feel invalidated is because the medical system rarely connects these dots. Physicians are trained to treat individual symptoms or isolated hormone readings, not to see the larger picture of how psychological trauma cascades into biological dysfunction. A cortisol level may appear normal without reflecting the abnormal rhythm beneath. Thyroid numbers may look fine on paper while conversion into active hormone is impaired. Reproductive hormone panels may miss key patterns if taken at the wrong time in a cycle. And blood sugar issues may only be flagged once the damage has progressed into prediabetes. The encouraging truth is that healing is possible. Your body, given the right support, has a remarkable ability to reset and recover. Addressing these hormonal shifts requires a holistic approach that acknowledges both the psychological trauma and the biological damage. This often involves stabilizing blood sugar through nutrition, practicing stress regulation techniques, supporting sleep, adding key supplementation when necessary, and in some cases, working with bioidentical hormones to restore balance. What matters most is patience, consistency, and compassion for yourself throughout the process. Recovery is not about perfection, but about giving your body and mind the safe conditions they never had during the abuse. With the right tools and guidance, survivors can not only repair the metabolic and hormonal damage, but also reclaim a sense of energy, clarity, and emotional stability that once felt impossible. Healing may take time, but it is real, it is available, and it is worth every step you take toward thriving again.